Hey guys, my name is Anna Catherine Peel and I teach third grade at Pastard Elementary. And today we are going to be working on a rounding lesson. So I'm really glad that you are tuning in. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you all. All right, so our essential question that we'll be able to answer by the end of this lesson, and I want to remind my students, this is our third day working on our rounding lesson, and so it is a little bit of a review and practice. By the end of our lesson, we want to make sure we can answer the question, how do I round numbers to the nearest 10? So let's get started. There we go. First, we want to start with our CUBA method. And so our CUBA method, the C stands for, we want to circle the number that we're rounding to. And so I'm going to walk you through these steps as we go, just to remind you about all the steps. We want to circle the number we're rounding. And so we are rounding 124 to the nearest 10. And so I'm going to look at this 2 to circle because that's the number I'll be looking at to round. We're going to underline the number to the right of the number we circled, which is our 4. And then we're going to look at that number and we're going to say, is this for a baby? Is that a number from 0 to 4, or a boss, a number from 5 to 9? So I'm going to look at this 4 and I'm going to say, well, that 4 is a number from 0 to 4. So it must be a baby, which means that the number is going to stay the same. So my 2, I'm not going to change it. It's going to stay the same. And last but not least, I have that A in Cuba, and that is to add 0 to all the places behind the number we rounded. So I rounded my 2 into my 4 is going to change to a 0, which gives us the number 120. 124 will round to 120. So now I'm going to pull up another problem, and we're going to practice our Cuba method. So I am going to call first on Miss Jones. Miss Jones, would you mind circling the number we're rounding? We're rounding 689 to the nearest 10.
Yes.
If you go to the very top on the green, it'll say annotate and have that picture of the pen.
The very top on the green.
You scroll to the very top.
It says view options.
Yes, I see it. Thank you. Annotate. Perfect. Thank you.
And then you'll click on draw and it'll let you write and type all over.
Perfect.
So you're going to circle the number that we are rounding. Perfect. So she circled that 8. Miss Fallow, could you underline the number to the right for me?
Yes.
All right, she underlined the 9. Now, Miss Billings, is this 9, is it a baby or is it a boss? Is the 9 a baby or a boss?
Well, I know that baby is a 0 through a 4 and a boss is a 5 through a 9. So it must be a boss.
And what's going to happen if that number is a boss? What's going to happen to our number?
It means it's going to be bossy to that number and it's going to round up. It's going to push it up.
So what number is it going to turn into?
The 8 becomes a 9.
Perfect. That 8 is going to become a 9. And last but not least, we have to add a 0 to all of the places behind the number we've been working with. So we know that 689 is going to round to 690. Now we're going to be looking at the number line method. Now, if we are rounding the number 356 to the nearest 10, I've got a question. I have the number 10 because that's the number I'm rounding to. I'm rounding to my nearest 10. How many zeros do you see in the number 10, Miss Carol?
1.
1. So since there's only 1 0 in the number 10, I'm only going to put 1 circle. And this 356, when I circle that 6, it turns it into 350. Now, I know that 10 more than 350 is what, Miss Lovell?
360.
Perfect. 360. And halfway between 350 and 360 is what, Miss Stoll? Halfway between 350 and 360, Miss Stoll.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. 355.
355. So I want my participants, my in-class participants and my online participants, I'm gonna run my finger down the number line and I want you to say stop where I should mark 356 on this number line. All right.
Stop.
Perfect.
Stop.
356. And so since our 356 is after that middle number, the 355, we're gonna round up. Remember we learned a chant on Monday that said 4 or less, let it rest. 5 or more, raise the score. And so we have raised the score and 356 is going to round up to 360. All right. Now, I am going to call on my friend Catherine, and she is going to work me through the first steps of rounding 143 to the nearest 10. Catherine, I want you to talk it out to me, and I'm going to write it on the screen. So what's that first thing I'm going to need to do?
You're going to need to circle the 3.
Why did you circle only the 3?
Because we're going to be rounding to the tens place. So that's the number we need to look at to see if it's a baby or a boss.
Perfect. Okay. And so what are we going to do next?
On the left side of the number line, we're going to write 140.
Perfect. Okay.
And then on the very right side of the number line, we're going to write 150 because that's 10 more than 140.
Okay. And then what's going to go in the middle?
In the middle, you're going to do 145 because it's halfway through 140 and 150.
And is my 143, is that going to go between 140 and 145 or between 145 and 150?
It's going to go in between 140 and 145.
Perfect. So is 143 going to round up to 150 or down to 140?
It's going to round down to 140.
Perfect. 4 or less, we're going to let it rest. It's going to stay the same at 140. So that's our second way that you could work this math problem. And we are going to work it one more way. And this is my favorite way. So let me grab my balloon. We're going to come over here. So I have a balloon in my hand, and we're going to be working with the number 356. Now, I am going to hold on tight to my balloon because I don't want it to blow away. So I have all 5 fingers and I'm holding on as tight as I can. I am still going to do that Cuba method, okay? So I'm going to circle the number I'm rounding. I'm going to circle that 5 because I'm rounding to the nearest 10. Underline the 6 because that's the number to the right of the number that I'm rounding. And it's going to tell me how many fingers I'm going to release. So I have all 5 of my fingers holding on tight. But since I've underlined my 6, that's how many I'm going to release. Now, if my balloon stays in my hand, that means my number, that 5, is going to stay the same. If it goes up into the air, that means I've released 5 or more fingers, which means my number is going to round up. It's going to go up just like my balloon went in the air. So we're going to release fingers together. Now, if you're at home or even in the classroom, you might be thinking, Miss Peel, I don't have a balloon on me. I'm not going to have a balloon during any of my tests. What can I do? Well, I want you to hold your hand just like this. And when I release fingers, I want you to release those fingers too, because you can pretend you have a balloon in your hand anytime. All right. So we're going to release 6 fingers, starting with your thumb. That's going to be the first one we release. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Up. Our balloon went up. It is going to round up. So 356 is actually going to be rounding up to 360. Now I'm going to get Miss Carol to come up to the front, and she is going to round our next number. Miss Carol, I'm going to give you the number 124. Here's your balloon. So which number? I want you to start by, I want you to circle the number that we're rounding, and I want you to underline the number to the right of the one we're rounding.
This is the one I'm going to circle.
Perfect.
And that's the one I'm going to underline.
Perfect. And how many are you going to release? 2 fingers or 4 fingers?
4.
You always release the one you underline. Perfect. All right. I want you, if you're at home, to be releasing those in with imaginary balloons.
Okay, so we start with our thumb. 1,
One.
2, 3, 4. And I still have my balloon.
So what does that mean?
That means that this is going to round to 120.
120. It's going to say the same. So we put our 0 and we have 120. Perfect. Thank you, Miss Carol. And you can let that balloon go up. I am going to share my screen with y'all one more time. And I want you to practice this time. Oh, y'all did not follow me. My apologies. It lost us for a second. All right, so we're going to practice. We're going to be rounding the number 168 to the nearest 10. Now, if you want to use the balloon method, the Cuba method, or on the number line where you circle the last number, you're welcome to use any of those methods. But I want you to work it out at home on a piece of paper. And I am going to call on Miss Billings. She's going to work it out on our screen for me. So Miss Billings, if you would turn on your annotate, everyone else, you are going to turn, you're going to work it on at home on your paper.
You want me to use a number line?
You can do whichever method you want. See it? She's writing on her screen?
Mhm.
Okay. All right, that is perfect, Miss Billings. And I hope if you were working on it at home, you got 170 as well. Now, Miss Jones, what method did Miss Billings use to answer this problem?
She used the number line method.
She used the number line method, and she kind of mixed Cuba into it as well. So you could circle that 8 because there's only 1, 0, and 10, or you could use the Cuba method and circle the number you're rounding, underline the number to the right of it, and then put them on the number line. Great job, Miss Billings. Our last problem is actually going to be an exit slip. And what I want you to do is you can scan this QR code, and it will take you to a Google quiz, and that will give me feedback on how you're doing in class, and that way I can work with you one-on-one and see your understanding of this lesson. Now, if you are a webinar participant, this is the end of our lesson, and it's gonna, when the webinar ends, there is going to be a questionnaire that comes up, and we would absolutely love your feedback. So thank you for popping into our lesson, and have a great night.